Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of United Talks podcast. And today we're going to be reacting to basically Casemiro. Basically, we're going to talk about Casemiro. You know, we're going to talk about how he has become indispensable, how he rose from the popular quotes from Jimmy Carragher to basically, just being a mainstay in this United um, setup or in this United system, considering how he was below in the pecking order. But we all remember the whispers. I mean, the headlines that screamed about a five-time Champions League winner who who has been reduced to a liability, a legend, seemingly past his prime, told by a celebrated pundit to leave the football before the football leaves you. That narrative around Casemiro for too long was one of slow, inevitable decline. I mean, 3 seasons ago, Rúben was calling him a Rolls Royce of a midfielder because he was doing his best to glide around the field. That's what Ferdinand described him as in his first season, one who glides around the field and all of that. And then he was said to have had an inevitable decline. But then Rúben Amorim walked through the door at Manchester United and something extraordinary happened. The perceived decline has not only halted, but it's spectacularly reversed. Casemiro is no longer just a big name. He is a single most indispensable component in Amorim's new tactical structure, and he's the difference between systemic stability and outright crisis. And we saw that evidenced in the Brighton game when he was taken off, and in the games we've lost this season, he was not on the field. Today we're going to go beyond the goal highlights and the standard punditry, and we're going to dive deep, as we do as always on this channel, into the empirical data and the cold hard tactics, tactical calculus that proves why Casemiro has not merely regained his form, but why his very presence is non-negotiable for Manchester United's success in the 2025-26 season, despite the fact that he is on the last couple of months of his contract. Obviously, his contract ends in the summer of 2026. So, now we're going to talk about the systemic imperative. To understand Casemiro's importance, we first have to understand the manager's vision. First, Rúben Amorim operates in a rigid positional 5-2-3 system or 3-4-3 system that converts to a 3-4-3 when United are in possession. This blueprint is designed to create overloads on the flanks, allowing the wing backs to push high and create attacking danger. However, this rigidity creates an inherent massive tactical paradox at the heart of the team. Think about the central unit, basically a back five or a back three, and then only two central midfielders shielding them when the wide players are high up the pitch. And then the opponent launches a quick transition, the central channels become critically exposed, and the three center backs are often reluctant to step out and press high. But in recent games, they have shown that they can actually do that, especially in the last 3-4 games, which means that the player operating as the fixed anchor midfielder shoulders an overwhelming defensive burden, and that's what happens when Casemiro drops into that backline. This systemic flaw, this vulnerability at the core of Amorim's design, is precisely why Casemiro is so vital. His value is not measured in high-speed box-to-box running, but in elite cognitive structural stability. I mean, he's the necessary solution to the system's own defect or perceived defect. He serves as the constant reference point, managing space, blocking the critical passing lanes, and winning second balls where the structure breaks down. Now, his job is a twofold one, basically. Defensively, he must be the impenetrable central shield. Offensively, he must initiate structured progression from deep. When he anchors the team, the attack develops with sustained pressure. Without him, the team is forced to rely on chaotic broken transitions, as referenced against Brighton. The anchor doesn't just already, it doesn't just, steady the defense. He also facilitates quality offense. Now, we're going to talk about him from crisis to confirmation, and that is what Amorim's challenge was. Interestingly, Casemiro's ascension to being the indispensable anchor was not a given. New managers often prefer younger, more malleable players, and Amorim proved to be no exception. Early on in his tenure, Amorim quotes demonstrated a period of intense challenge for the Brazilian veteran. He just didn't even rate him. The manager was quoted as saying bluntly that Casemiro was at one point behind every midfielder, even Toby Collier. That quote is startling, basically. It was Amorim's way of demanding total commitment and tactical adherence. I remember him saying it several times in his press conferences, regardless of the player's 5 Champions League rings or winner's medal or whatever you want to call it. Excuse me. Casemiro had to fight and work to adapt his game to a non-negotiable rigidity of the new positional system. He was asked to prioritize awareness and discipline over instinctual covering runs, which he was doing a lot under Eric Ten Hag. Now, this narrative of struggle only makes his resurgence more compelling. This narrative of struggle only makes his resurgence more compelling. Later, Amorim would reverse his assessment completely, praising the midfielder by saying he gives a lot of experience and he's an example for everyone. The other guys need to look at Casemiro, and that is what everybody needs: a bit of experience in your team, right? Now, the journey from being tactically marginal to being hailed as the squad's ultimate example proves that Casemiro successfully submitted his elite talent to the rigorous demands of the manager's tactical system. Now, the empirical truth is with or versus without, which we're going to talk about. His impact in the team, within the team, when he's with the team, and when he's not in the team. Now, we'll move from theory to empirical proof. So we've talked about how he fits in the system and what he's done and what Amorim has said. Now we're going to talk about the truth using stats. Now, the definitive data set for the 25-26 season quantifies just how critical Casemiro is. The team's record splits clearly into a tale of 2 different Manchester United teams: the one anchored by Casemiro and the one without him. Now, in 6 Premier League matches where Casemiro started, United secured 4 crucial victories, including a high-stakes win against rivals like Chelsea and Liverpool. That translates to a strong 66.7% Premier League win rate when he is in the lineup. Now, let's contrast that to when he's not in the team. The contrast is stark. In 2 major Premier League fixtures where Casemiro did not start, because obviously he suffered, he got a red card against Chelsea, United suffered comprehensive defeats: a 3-0 loss to Manchester City and a 3-1 loss to Brentford. Those are the 2 defeats that actually signified that Rúben Amorim was really struggling. In both of those defeats, the team conceded 3 goals, showcasing a profound lack of defensive control and midfield balance. When he is absent, the win rate in major PL games, Premier League games, collapses to 0. This pattern is too pronounced to be a mere coincidence. That's facts. Digging deeper into this tactical metrics reveals that the true crisis of his absence is evident. When he plays, opponents are often forced to rely on inefficient attacking methods like set pieces or second phase opportunities, because they struggle to find clean routes through the center of the pitch. Now, when the central shield is removed, the team is catastrophically exposed. The analysis shows that the chance of conceding from open play against Manchester United would have almost tripled when Casemiro is not on the pitch. His positional intelligence, more than any tackle count, is the single most important defensive metric in the team. and for the team. Now, the qualifying cognitive anchor is the next stage of this deep dive. When we talk about Casemiro's performance today, based less on raw athleticism and more on cognitive efficiency. At 33 years old, the metrics confirm a player whose brain has fully compensated for any physical changes. His defensive index is at an elite 79.9. That's a stat you need to know. But the most compelling number here is a sense of space rating of 71. This metric is a quantification of his superior positional awareness. So the metric is to quantify Casemiro's positional awareness. It measures his ability to read the game, anticipate threats, and utilize or close down space effectively. In a rigid system like Amorim's, which relies on that 3-4-3 system, which minimizes dynamic running, the ability to manage space is the most valuable attribute a defensive anchor can possess. He has the cognitive skill to set required. Cognitive skill set required to mask the system's central vulnerabilities and his own perceived loss of pace. Right now, we're going to talk about the case study. We're going to talk about details as to how we can validate these stats and stuff. But furthermore, he maintains a solid 81.17% passing accuracy, demonstrating his reliability and the reliability required to safely circulate the ball from deep and maintain control, which is essential to the manager's positional model. He is statistically the elite spatial blocker that the 5-3-2 or 3-4-3 formation desperately requires. Now, let's look at the defining victories with regards to Casemiro and his cognitive impact when it comes to the result. We can see this cognitive impact clearest in the results. Look at the victory against Liverpool. This was a high-risk, high-reward fixture where Casemiro's mandate was almost purely defensive. In the 59 minutes he played, his statistics shows his priority was structural maintenance. 0 expected goals, 0 expected assists, but he accumulated 2 fouls and 1 yellow card. These weren't mistakes. They were tactical fouls, necessary sacrifices taken to halt rapid, high-value open play opportunities from developing. Now, he was the circuit breaker, denying clean transition routes through the heart of the pitch and ultimately stabilizing the system in the highest pressure moments. And he was subbed off when he had that foul in 59th minute. And thinking about the fact that he just came from an international break where he traveled to Japan and Korea, you could see that he was also lagged. He also jet lagged and looking very tired. But he had that foul in 59th minute. Obviously, Amorim was still eventually going to sub him off at the 60th minute. So that sub happened. Like I said, he was a circuit breaker. But there was the Brighton and Hove Albion victory, which you have to look at too as well. This match was Casemiro operating at his peak, earning an exceptional 8.6 fourth mob rating for a complete masterclass, basically. Defensively, I think we rated him 8.5 in our player ratings. But defensively, he recorded 5 recoveries and won 4 of his 6 ground duels he engaged in. We talked about it in the player ratings when we did the match review. Now, these high success rates are the direct result of his positional intelligence, disrupting Brighton's intricate passing rhythm in the central third. Now, he was also influential going forward. Apart from just disrupting Brighton, he was influential going forward, recording a goal or an assist in the first half. Now, his assist came. He recorded a goal and an assist, and his assist came from a calculated pass that picked out a teammate every time he played in a pocket of space. Linking the defensive zone to structured offensive progression. And his performance was the complete empirical answer to every question that had been raised about his current capacity. So, if we're going to wrap everything up, before we go to that, we want to talk about like the fact that Casemiro has proven time and again that he is a worthy player to be in that position as a defensive midfielder. So Casemiro is basically, the anchor of that midfield, and one who, instills a bit of control whenever we're in there. And he has also all the requirements to be defensive when needed, and to push up when needed, and to press when needed. It was our high press against Brighton and one-on-one marking against Brighton that led towards getting, the opportunity for Casemiro to even shoot at goal, or even recover the ball and then pass it to Cunha, who eventually scored. So this analysis is ambiguous, right? But the redemption is complete for Casemiro. Casemiro is a definitive systemic stabilizer for Manchester United. His specific profile is uniquely matched to the rigid high IQ defensive requirements of Rúben Amorim's system. And like I said time and again, Rúben Amorim's system consists of 4 midfielders in the block. You have two 6s and 2 10s, or what you call a 6 and an 8, maybe a 6 and an 8, because one of the midfielders, case in point, Bruno Fernandes, is the box-to-box guy who carries the ball and dictates play. The other one is the 10, who comes deep and wins the ball and creates an overload in midfield, while the other one is a 10 that stretches the midfield, goes wide, comes inside when the wing back flies wide, case in point, Brian Bumo. And then there's Casemiro, defensive anchor, screener, the one that holds and recycles balls and basically presses the other midfielders if they're using. Usually most teams will line up in a 4-2-3-1. So if you have a 4-2-3-1, you definitely have the centre back marking the striker, and then 3 midfielders. You have one of the centre backs pushing, one of the left or right centre backs pushing to each of the other 3 midfielders. Each of the other 3 midfielders on the wide side of the midfield, especially if they are not playing narrow. And then you have attacking players for the opposing team. And then you have the one attacking midfielder for the opposing team where Casemiro sits on him. And then Bruno pushes up to press on one of the 2 defensive midfielders for the other team, for the opposing team. Or he pushes up into the middle to try to cover the space for one of the 2 defensive midfielders, while one of the 10s, Mount Cunha, drops into mid to create that overload. So we have 3 players at every point in the midfield. So, like I said, this analysis is a bit ambiguous. I mean, I would love to show you stats and dashboards and stuff, but Casemiro is the specific profile of player that Rúben Amorim needs in his system, and he has that high IQ defensive requirement for that Rúben Amorim actually needs, and it has shown in difference when Ugarte is brought on. Now, the empirical data proves that the sharp differential is results. Prove that there is a sharp differential in results. The 66.7% win rate with him starting versus the catastrophic defensive performance in his absence confirms that he is not just influential, but the essential component preventing the central defensive breakdown of the team. This spectacular resurgence serves as the definitive empirical refutation of the external criticism. For pundits like Jamie Carragher, who keeps talking and had questioned his long-term versatility, that's the second player that Jamie Carragher has been wrong about, especially for Man United. He talked about Lisandro Martinez not being able to cut it in the Premier League, and Lisandro Martinez, the rest is history for that one. And his 3 seasons at Man United, he's won 2 trophies. Then he talked about Casemiro leaving the football before the football leaves you. And obviously it has questioned, the viability, the long-term viability of Jamie Carragher's words. And obviously, Casemiro has answered those questions not with words, but with high-level performance and critical results. When asked about proving people wrong, Casemiro responded simply, refusing to engage, stating that he is happy and focused solely on winning. Straightforward, determined. His stability gives his teammates the psychological confidence to operate higher up the pitch, turning a vulnerable system into a robust and effective one. For Manchester United, aggressive workload management is now mandatory to maximize his availability. For Rúben Amorim, the lesson is clear. Build a proactive technical and tactical structure around the strengths of your elite players and you will be rewarded. And that has shown in the 3 back-to-back games, Sunderland, Liverpool, Brighton, that we've won, and in the 4 consecutive games we won in the Premier League at Old Trafford. Casemiro has been involved in those games. So that is a fact and straightforward. The game against Burnley, the game against Chelsea, the game against Sunderland, and the game against Brighton. Casemiro, so Casemiro may have been at the bottom of the pecking order once before, but today he's the rock upon which Manchester United's stability is built. He is the indispensable anchor. So let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section. We can talk more and more and all that, but I just had to bring you these stats to prove to you the importance of Casemiro, and he's adding that or supporting his facts with goals and stuff. So let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. If you haven't already, please do like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't have to miss anything as it relates to Manchester United. Drop in the comment section what do you think should happen? Should Man United extend Casemiro's contract, or should he be let go and be replaced? And I feel like he should be replaced. For me, he should be replaced in January so that the person can learn of him and then we can build from there. So let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section. Should Man United sell Casemiro or extend his contract? I'll see you on the next one. Take care, goodbye, and God bless.